All right, pass the mic. So this has been a really exciting initiative that we have launched this year. And as you've heard us say before, here at the River, we believe that church is something that we co-create together. And we don't think that church should be just centered around one leader or even a group of leaders. We really think that everyone in the community matters and has something to contribute. And so one of the ways that we have been leaning into that is through this Pass the Mic program, where I literally will pass the mic. And Maddie and I have been meeting with a cohort of River members and working with them from generating an idea for a sermon to writing an outline to writing a first draft to revising drafts to creating the slides, the whole process of how you create a sermon. And so today, I'm very excited we get to hear from longtime River member, Lou. This is a really good sermon, and let's give Lou a very warm welcome, all right?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. And huge thank you to Pastor Allison and Pastor Maddie for the Pass the Mic experience. They are extraordinarily good at helping you take your raw ideas and shape them into a cohesive talk. Anyway, my name is Lou. I found the River in 2004, and I have happily been part of this amazing community ever since. I'm embarrassed to admit I first got the idea to speak over a year ago, and I've been procrastinating basically because I've been pretty anxious about getting up here. Now, not many people know this, but Elvis had extreme stage fright when he first started performing, to the degree that his legs would shake uncontrollably. So you know what he did? He used it. And made it into the iconic signature dance that we all still know today. I love that. I love it that that actually happened. The record company executives at the time said, that kid will never make it. His hair's too bushy. Yeah, they said this. His hair's too bushy, and he wears way too much eyeliner. I guess he did all right. But, you know, nerve-wracking or not, I wanted to speak about some of my experiences of God's active love. How God shows up and loves us in so many delightful ways. It reminds us not only how much we're loved, but just how much there is in life to love. I hope by sharing what that's looked like for me, it helps us all experience more of God's never-ending, unabashedly loving presence in our lives. First, a little background. My husband, Matt, and I moved to the city in the mid-90s. Matt's a drummer. I'm a singer-dancer. Now, like many New Yorkers, we came here with hopes to pursue our artistic dreams. We both did some performing. Matt was mainly teaching drum lessons, and I was a fitness instructor and a personal trainer. I absolutely loved it. It was my dream job. But like many of us done at times, we end up taking on way too much. We kept adding more classes, clients, and commitments till we were completely overscheduled and frantic. And I know everyone in here relates to this. I would leave our Woodside apartment around 7:30 a.m. and go around teaching classes at different gyms and training clients and get home around 9 p.m. Matt would literally race out of the house and skate. He would inline skate and rollerblade down Queens Boulevard to his studio, teach a bunch of lessons, and then skate home or take the train home late at night. Somehow we kept this going for over 15 years. And of course, there were things we loved about it, but it was just too much. And by 2019, we were in our late 40s, and we were totally maxed out. We wanted respite and escape from our crazed lives. Matt's brother invited us to move to Florida, where he lived. And it was kind of like the Israelites in the Bible. They'd been slaves in Egypt. It was like we'd been slaves to our oppressive schedules. We started envisioning Florida like it could be the promised land. Like, after 20 years in this tiny apartment, we're finally going to have more space for less rent. We'll have a washer dryer. All these, quality of life things that we feel like we give up in New York, right? And we'd finally have time to pursue some of our artistic goals, or so we imagined. So we took a major risk. We decided to give up our Queens apartment, leave our New York lives, and move down there. We packed up our stuff into a Penske truck, but instead of our utopian vision, that started a roller coaster of pretty much everything going wrong. Okay, let me just give you a snapshot. The very night we left, as we were on the road, our new Florida landlord sent us a message. He was going to double our rent, and we were only going to be allowed to live in the house for like 2 months. The next several years involved a $10,000 emergency room bill, massive family feuds, landlord battles, a faction of the Miami mob. Now, I didn't know there was a Miami mob, but I assure you there is. Because they were holding all of our stuff hostage when we were trying to move to North Carolina later. When we were in North Carolina, like we made it halfway back up, in North Carolina we had 2 mouse infestations, and that was followed by mice mites. We didn't even know about mice mites, but apparently when you get rid of the mice, when they can't feed on them, they feed on you. Anyway. And then we just had this ongoing experience of feeling like fish out of water, environmentally and socially, and it led us to wonder if we belonged anywhere. Do we fit in with anyone? So once again, we find ourselves blindsided, burned out, pretty disillusioned. Moving was supposed to have been this fresh start, an escape route from the nonstop intensity we'd been maintaining in New York. But life ended up being more turbulent than ever. We were no longer slaves in Egypt, but we also weren't in the promised land we dreamed about. Like the Israelites in the desert, we were wandering in the wilderness, kind of bewildered and unsure what to do next. As we've talked about at the river, there is this great recurring motif in the Bible of the wilderness. Characters find themselves in periods of extreme logistical and emotional uncertainty. And God is right there with them the whole time. One of my favorite examples is the story of Elijah in 1 Kings. God shows up when things are going well, and God shows up when things aren't going so well. Now, as you may recall, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel are getting the people to worship the foreign god Baal instead of Yahweh, the Israelites' God. There's this glorious triumph where Elijah's altar bursts into flames, proving Yahweh to be the one true God. So everybody's amazed. They all come back to God. Then Elijah says, okay, it's going to rain now. There'd been this drought. God's going to let it rain now. So Ahab, you better get back in your chariot and get home to Jezreel because it is fixing to pour. So I got to get out of here too. So there's this great scene where Ahab jumps in the chariot and speeds off. Elijah picks up his cloak and just starts running. The Spirit of the Lord comes on him. He runs, all of a sudden he starts sprinting faster than Ahab's horses and beats him all the way back to Jezreel. And I looked it up, and Jezreel was like 20 miles away. So he basically did this like Olympic marathon back to Jezreel and beat him there. So it's a huge success. Elijah's at the peak of his career. But then things take a turn. Jezebel wants to get revenge and kill Elijah. So he flees to the wilderness to escape. And he is devastated. The passage says, Elijah went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. It's enough. It's enough. Now, Lord, just take away my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. So he is exhausted and in total despair. We can all relate to this. Times when we are feeling so beat up, like we have nothing left to give. The good news is that during those kind of seasons, God cares and shows up for us in practical and emotional ways. So let's look at the text. Here are a few of the tangible ways that God supports Elijah. In the soothing touch of an angel, in food, a cake baked on hot stones, and a jar of water appeared, in rejuvenating sleep and strength. So God is restoring him. He has the energy to make it to the cave on Mount Horeb to hide, and God continues to care for him. In peaceful silence, in encouraging words, and in specific guidance for the future. So God took care of him physically first, and now he's taking care of him emotionally. Now check this out. Before his time in the wilderness, Elijah had come to know God through these big, powerful displays. Fire coming down from heaven, supernatural, crazy speed. But then on Mount Horeb, God showed up for Elijah in ways that were quite different. Less dramatic, gentle power. And what's amazing is Elijah was able to perceive the new and subtle ways God was with him. In that cave, he got out of the external and internal whirlwind, and he heard God's still, small voice. So sometimes God shows up for us in big, sensational ways. Other times in quiet, personal ways, every bit as beautiful and miraculous. That is exactly what God did for me. Part of what helped me get through my own chapter in the wilderness was to practice seeing and hearing the unique ways God was with me the whole time. One way I experienced God's loving presence was through prayer. Now, just so you know, this was largely non-traditional forms of prayer. While we were in Florida, I was doing kind of a meditation-style prayer. In the middle of one of those sessions, God seemed to say to me, all right, you pulled the rug out from under yourselves. Yeah. You're afraid. You're scared. Yeah. But you're okay. I'm here. How would you feel if I gave you some marching orders right now? Has anybody read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron? Excellent, excellent. She uses this great term, marching orders. It's like the callings and directions God laid out for Elijah and other characters throughout the Bible. You get this guiding flowchart sequence of how to proceed. And as you start to enact the steps in the sequence and the steps in the flowchart, details of things to facilitate what you're doing fill in around it, and they come together like tiles in a mosaic, often in a way where everybody wins. Everyone gets cared for in the way the tiles fit together and connect people's lives. So God was recognizing, okay, you're definitely in an uncertain wilderness right now. He reassured me to notice Matt and I were all right. And then he asked, you want some guidance? I said, yeah. That's exactly what God proceeded to do. as I spent time with God in prayer, she started sharing daily ideas of the exact loving words I could say to people to care for them and promote connection in my life. I got in touch with some of my regular class students in the city. One offered to let us stay in her midtown apartment for a month, so we left North Carolina and we drove back up. We had no idea where the heck we were going to go at the end of that month, and what could we possibly afford? At this point, another student told us about a website pet-sitting platform where you get to stay in people's homes for free in exchange for taking care of their pets while they're traveling. I posted a profile. We started pet sitting, and that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years. It's provided us with rent-free housing while we try to rebuild our lives in the tri-state area and figure out what that's going to look like. And it provides the pet parents with solid, loving care for their pets so they can travel with peace of mind. Everybody wins. During some non-traditional rhythmic movement prayer type sessions, God expanded these marching orders to very specific guidance on where to go and when. So we had sit dates line up perfectly. One homeowner would come back into town as the next homeowner was leaving, like sometimes the exact day. Another way God showed up for me during that season was through other people. Not only these kind people who gave us practical help, but also through people who validated what we were feeling throughout this whole adventure. I just love when God sends you an Elizabeth, someone going through basically the exact same thing that you are. God sends both of you the best empathetic support and friendship through each other. Remember how incredulous and ecstatic Jesus' mother Mary is when she shows up at Elizabeth's door, sees that she too is pregnant under these miraculous circumstances, and is like, what? You too? God sent us so many Elizabeths during our wilderness season. Our next door neighbor in Florida turned out to be from Forest Hills, which is where kind of near where we lived in Queens. Totally. She had moved down there to be near her kids and had basically been trying to move back ever since. So literally as we're pulling up in the driveway of our rental house for the first time, scared as heck, standing in the driveway next to ours is this short, awesome New York Jewish woman. She sees our license plate frame that says like where we bought the car, and she yells out, "What part of Queens? You're gonna hate it here." One final way God showed up for us and continues to show up for us was through the wonderful animals we got to spend time with. Now for this talk, I'm just gonna focus on the dogs. We'd been in a state where we were completely overwhelmed and discouraged with our lives, thinking maybe we could only enjoy life if we changed our circumstances. Circumstantial contentment. So God sent us the perfect roommates for us to be around and care for. Yeah, these are some of them. Dogs are fully present, engaged, and enthusiastic about life. Not lost in their heads, judging themselves, others, or life in general. Now, look with me for a minute. The dog in the middle bottom, you see him? He's kind of calico looking. That's Eddie. Look at that face. Look at that face. Definitely not getting down on himself, right? It's like, oh yeah, the promised land is in here. I'm almost jealous. He's got Eden in there. Yeah, the promised land is in here, isn't it? And in here. I love this quote. There are some simple truths, and the dogs know what they are. I love what dogs value. They value the simple things. Good food, going on walks and meeting up with local neighbors, getting some good sleep. They love togetherness, spending time together playing or just hanging out. They really appreciate and savor all of these things. As I spent time with these dogs, God encouraged me to be more like them, to appreciate simple pleasures. Now, this is one of the best pictures of that ever, okay? This is Snickers, okay? The bottom, middle. We would, on one of our regular walks, she loved just rubbing up against this bush because it felt good. The simple pleasures, lean into loving connection with others, and love life come what may. So whether we find ourselves in a metaphorical Egypt, wilderness, or promised land, God is always with us, loving us, and working for our good. Sometimes this feels crystal clear, and other times we have to make more of an effort to try to see and hear the ways God is working. Noticing God's presence is something we can deliberately practice. Here are 2 practical suggestions I think can help us do that. My first practical suggestion is to make room for silence, rest, and discovery. Oftentimes there is so much noise in our lives, it can be difficult to see and hear God with us. It's easy to fill up our minds and schedules to the point it's hard to connect with ourselves and others, not to mention God. Moving to Florida was not the dramatically positive experience I'd hoped it would be, but my time in the wilderness did help me to become more intentional about making room to hear God in times of prayer and to notice God as I went about my daily life. If you struggle to make room for silence or to hear God's voice, there's something we offer at the River I highly recommend. Group Spiritual Direction with Scott. I got to do it last spring, and I know it can be hard to predict these things, but basically every meeting, the Holy Spirit was right there with us, just beneath the surface of all the white noise interference that we all usually have getting in the way. My second practical suggestion is to try to notice and savor the different ways that God is actively present in your life. Like Mary pondered and treasured all these things in her heart. Notice and savor God's invitations, guidance, and encouragement. Notice and savor the support you receive through connection with others. Notice and savor the Elizabeths who find themselves in similar seasons to your own. Notice and savor the gift of God's creatures and God's creation. And finally, notice and savor the synchronicities that pop up around you. Have you heard this concept, synchronicity? The term was popularized by Carl Jung to refer to the phenomenon of uncanny coincidence. When 2 events, when like 2 events or situations that occur simultaneously seem to totally be related. Whether or not you attribute it to God, it often seems to me like God providing exactly what you need at exactly the right time. It could be provisional, like housing always showing up for Matt and me while we didn't have our own place, or some delightful concurrence to boost your spirits when you're feeling low. Jody Blazek-Gehr, retreat leader at St. Benedict Center, describes it like this. Now, bear with me. This is kind of a dense quote, but she describes perfectly this this phenomenon of synchronicity that I think we've all experienced at one time or another. Rather than events having no discernible causal connection, I think of synchronicities as connections seen with the inner eye. They are holy coincidences, both mysterious and meaningful. These holy surprises open our eyes in new ways. The voice of synchronicity encourages us to be aware, to look and listen deeply. There are so many invisible forces and connections, weaving a web that holds us in its grace. The more we look, the more we see. It's only with eyes open to wonder, holy surprises, and synchronicity that we experience the humbling and awesome fall to our knees. There, we're uplifted by invisible forces and surrounded by angels who walk among us in seen and unseen forms. In these moments, we see new pathways and new possibilities. I agree with Brian McLaren, who said the closest thing to God is when we say, wow. Holding tight to this knowing sustains us when our faith is not as strong or when challenges present themselves. Here are two of my favorite examples from our pet sitting adventures. First, there was a week when I'd been thinking about how much pressure we're all under, and I was trying to figure out how to work that into this sermon. So I'd been singing that great David Bowie masterpiece, Under Pressure, raining down on me, raining down on you. So I'd been singing that all week. We get to our next sit, and the dog's name is Bowie, named for David Bowie. I'd also been feeling nervous about giving this sermon at the time. In the same house, here's the big painting that's on the wall in the bathroom for me to look at every morning. I know. Now, here's a second example. I'd been thinking again about this mosaic effect in the kingdom of God, how our lives have all these tiles of God's love. Some tiles are the rich experiences we draw from. Many of them are all the wonderful people who've been with us and spoken into our lives. It all comes together in a beautiful mosaic. Matt and I arrive at our next sit in upstate New York for an artist. We walk in and see this in the living room. Now, I wish I could do this justice. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Eve Says No. You see the doves holding that banner. So I'd been literally thinking about mosaics. I walk in, and the entire wall is almost covered in this. It was definitely a fall to my knees moment. What would have happened if Eve said no? That's like a whole other sermon. How glorious that God is with us in such a textured variety of ways. And when we quiet down out of the whirlwind, we can notice and feel God's loving presence all around us and within us. As I move toward closing this sermon, I want to say thank you, River family. One of the biggest ways God has actively loved me is through all of you. Everyone has welcomed us back so warmly. Without the river and what we've talked about over the years, I would not have been able to understand any of this. I wouldn't have been able to see anything of what was going on. So staying connected to you all, whether it's in Florida, North Carolina, Larchmont, Westchester, upstate New York, New Paltz, or out in New Jersey or Connecticut, staying connected with the river has been such a blessing. And Matt, thank you for being one of the most beautiful tiles in my mosaic. The best part of this adventure has been sharing it with you. So why don't you come on up Now, though the stakes aren't nearly as high, just like David, while in the wilderness, I've been writing a lot of songs to help get me through. So, in lieu of a closing prayer, I'm going to do a song, and we're going to put the lyrics up because I know you guys are going to understand this completely. So, come on, Matt. We're just going to go kind of grassroots with it. Oh, thank you. I'll take it as it comes. Seems like it's coming fast. The day is done, not one is gonna last. It's not what you think, not all you do. It all comes down to love, that's what we're made of. Simple, but it's true. It's a ride, Lord, with you. An adventure, what I meant sure is I can't wait to see what we'll do. What a ride, Lord, with you. Remind me you're behind me, 1 and 1 make 2. Could this be what faith is about? You don't have to stall when you don't have it all completely figured out. Please don't hesitate. Please don't be afraid. There'll be enough. You got the right stuff. The bills will all get paid. It's a ride, Lord, with you. An adventure, what I meant sure is I can't wait to see what we'll do. What a ride, Lord, with you. Remind me you're behind me, 1 and 1 make 2. Waiting on God, what does that mean? Sometimes He waits on us to see what can be seen. Notice how, bet on a dime, here comes just what you need at just the right time. It's a ride, Lord, with you. An adventure, what I meant sure is I can't wait to see what we'll do. What a ride, Lord, with you. Remind me you're behind me, 1 and 1 make 2. Remind me you're behind me, 1 and 1 make 2. Thank you. Thank you. Well, okay, worship team, your turn. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lou. Thank you, Lou. Thanks for this message and this beautiful story. That was amazing.